Good morning, everyone. Today I want to speak about a simple yet powerful phrase that we all need to hear. Don't worry. These two words may sound small, but they carry immense strength when we truly understand them. Worry is something we all experience, whether it's about our future, finances, family, or failures. It creeps in quietly, settles in our minds, and tries to take control of our peace. But I want to remind you today, worrying does not add a single positive thing to your life. Worry often disguises itself as responsibility or caution, but at its core, it is a mental and emotional thief. It sneaks into our thoughts subtly, starting with what ifs and maybes. And before we know it, we're consumed by fear over things that haven't even happened. The more we entertain these thoughts, the more they rob us of our peace. What should have been a day filled with gratitude or productivity becomes a day weighed down by invisible burdens. Peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of calm in the midst of life's storms. But worry disrupts that calm, dragging our minds into chaos even when nothing has gone wrong yet. Joy too becomes a casualty of worry. Imagine holding a beautiful gift in your hands, something you've waited for, and instead of enjoying it, you're scared at the youth, demise, veneration. Something you've waited for, and instead of enjoying it, Venetia, that's what worry does to joy. It robs us of the ability to live fully in the present, constantly reminding us of a future that may not even unfold the way we fear. What's even more tragic is that worry adds no value to our lives. It doesn't solve problems. It doesn't prevent bad things from happening. It doesn't make us more prepared. In fact, it often paralyzes us, making us less effective in handling the challenges that do come. It clouds our judgment, fuels anxiety, and distracts us from taking positive action. People sometimes think worrying shows they care or are being cautious. But real wisdom is found in planning without panic, in trusting without trembling. Worry consumes mental and emotional energy that could be used for creativity, connection, or problem solving. The irony is that while worry claims to help us be ready, it actually leaves us exhausted and unprepared. Our minds get so entangled in fear that we fail to see the solutions that are right before us. It's like carrying a heavy suitcase filled with items we don't need for a journey we may never take. Meanwhile, peace and joy stand at the doorway, waiting to be invited in, but we have no room left for them. We've filled our hearts with anxiety, doubts, and dread. We need to recognize worry for what it is, not a helpful tool, but a silent enemy that offers nothing useful in return. One of the most surprising truths about worry is how often it revolves around things that never come to pass. Our minds are powerful storytellers, capable of constructing detailed scenarios filled with fear, failure, and worst case outcomes. We project these fears into the future, treating them as if they are inevitable. But statistics and personal experience both tell us that the majority of our worries are unfounded. We spend hours, days, sometimes even years stressing over outcomes that never arrive. When we look back, we often realize how much energy we wasted on things that didn't deserve our focus in the first place. This reality reveals a fundamental flaw in the nature of worry. It is based on assumptions, not facts. Worry takes a small piece of uncertainty and magnifies it until it seems overwhelming. It convinces us that the unknown is something to be feared rather than approached with faith and resilience. The mind imagines a negative future, but that imagined scenario is often far worse than what actually unfolds. We brace ourselves for storms that never come, for failures that never occur, for losses that never happen. Yet, we allow those imagined futures to rob us of peace in the present. Even when difficult situations do arise, they are rarely as devastating as we fear. We are usually more capable of handling adversity than we think. But worry doesn't take our strength into account. It only highlights our vulnerability. It blinds us to our ability to adapt, to grow, and to persevere. When we reflect on past challenges, we often find that we managed to get through them, sometimes even better than expected. However, worry had already taken its toll by then, exhausting us before the real challenge had even begun. That's the tragedy of worry. It costs us twice. Once in fear and again in fatigue. By recognizing that most worries are illusions, we can begin to break free from their grip. It's not about ignoring responsibilities or pretending problems don't exist, but about shifting our mindset. We can choose to focus on what is real and within our control, rather than being ruled by possibilities that may never materialize. It's a matter of mental discipline, catching those runaway thoughts and grounding them in truth. When we do this, we regain power over our minds and we stop letting imagined fears govern our reality. Understanding that most worries never come true is the first step toward reclaiming peace. Worry is like a fog that settles over the present moment, obscuring the beauty and blessings that surround us. When our minds are preoccupied with what might go wrong tomorrow, we fail to appreciate what is going right today. Simple joys, like the warmth of the sun, the sound of laughter, or the comfort of a friend, it becomes invisible when our attention is consumed by fear. The present, which is the only moment we truly have, slips through our fingers while we live mentally in a future filled with uncertainty. Worry robs us of the gift of now, replacing it with a life lived in anticipation of trouble. Many people go through their days physically present but mentally absent, constantly rehearsing possible disasters in their minds. They may smile, nod, and respond, but internally they are battling fears and doubts about what's next. This internal dialogue drains emotional energy and creates a sense of restlessness that is hard to shake. Worry convinces us that we must solve every problem in advance. Yet life does not work that way. The present moment becomes nothing more than a stepping stone to the next fear. But when we learn to be fully present, we begin to see just how much goodness is already within our grasp. Living in the present does not mean ignoring the future, but it means grounding ourselves in the reality of now. Each day is filled with small miracles, opportunities for connection, moments to grow, and time to rest. Worry blinds us to these opportunities. It convinces us that life begins only after our fears are resolved. But peace doesn't come from eliminating all uncertainty. It comes from choosing to be grateful and attentive to what is already in our hands. The more we train our minds to focus on today, the less space we leave for anxiety to rule over us. When we worry, we not only lose sight of what's good, but we also miss the moments that shape our lives in meaningful ways. Children grow up, relationships evolve, and doors of opportunity open, all while we are busy entertaining the fears of a future we cannot control. It's a heartbreaking exchange. Once we realize how much we are missing by worrying, we can begin to reclaim our attention and cherish each day as the precious, irreplaceable gift it is. Worry thrives in the absence of faith. When we rely solely on our own understanding, resources, or ability to control situations, we inevitably feel overwhelmed. Life is full of uncertainties, and trying to navigate it without trust in something greater than ourselves is like walking through a storm with no shelter. Faith, on the other hand, provides that shelter. It gives us a place of safety within our hearts, even when the circumstances around us are chaotic. When we choose faith, we acknowledge that we don't have to have all the answers, because we serve a God who does. Faith reorients our perspective. Instead of focusing on what might go wrong, faith reminds us of who God is and what He has already done. It reminds us of His promises, His power, and His presence. In moments of fear, faith lifts our eyes off the problem and places them on the one who is greater than the problem. This shift in perspective brings peace, not because our challenges disappear instantly, but because we now face them with the confidence that we are not alone. Faith doesn't remove the storm, but it anchors us so we won't be shaken by it. Trusting God is not about pretending everything is fine or ignoring reality. It's about placing the weight of our worries into the hands of the one who is able to carry them. It is surrender, not giving up, but giving over. When we do this, we begin to experience a kind of peace that surpasses understanding. This peace doesn't come from perfect circumstances, but from a perfect Savior who promises to walk with us through every trial. Faith teaches us that even in the worst moments, there is a plan, there is hope. There is a limited, slim days. They will come to us. As faith deepens, worry begins to lose its grip. We start to remember that God has brought us through difficulties before and that He has not changed. His track record is flawless. Every time we choose to trust rather than tremble, we build spiritual strength. Faith doesn't make life easy, but it makes life possible. It becomes the antidote to fear, the answer to anxiety, and the firm ground beneath our feet when everything else feels uncertain. The more we lean into God, the less we are swayed by fear. And in that space, peace begins to reign. One of the most paralyzing effects of worry is the illusion of isolation. When fear begins to dominate our minds, we often feel like no one understands what we are going through, and worse, that we are facing our burdens all by ourselves. That sense of loneliness amplifies our anxiety and can make our problems seem even larger. But the truth is far different from the lie that worry tells us. From the beginning of time, God has promised His presence. He never asked us to face life's challenges in our own strength. Instead, He gently reminds us over and over that we are never alone. Even in our darkest valleys, uncertainty can feel like a deep fog that clouds everything familiar. We may not know what will happen next, how things will turn out, or how we will endure what's ahead. But in that very fog of the unknown, God is already present. He doesn't wait for the storm to pass before He joins us. He steps into the storm with us. Scripture is filled with reminders of His nearness. Fear not, for I am with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. These aren't poetic phrases for comfort alone. They are spiritual truths that anchor us when life gets unstable. It is in our weakest, most uncertain moments that the presence of God becomes most real. When we run out of answers, His wisdom leads. When we are too weary to keep going, His strength carries us. When the path ahead is unclear, His light guides our next step. Worry tells us we have to figure everything out on our own. God says, lean not on your own understanding. In every trial, He is not just watching from a distance, He is walking beside us, often carrying us when we don't even realize it. His presence may not always change the situation immediately, but it always changes us. It fills us with hope when fear tries to take hold. Knowing that God is with us gives us courage to keep moving forward. It doesn't mean we won't face challenges, but it means we will never face them abandoned. The comfort of His presence calms the soul like nothing else can. It transforms lonely nights into peaceful rest and anxious mornings into fresh starts. It reminds us that we were never created to walk through life independently. We were made to walk in relationship with our Creator, our guide, and our defender. So even when life is uncertain, you can take your next step boldly, knowing you are not walking it alone. Worry is an instinctive reaction to life's pressures. But prayer is an intentional response rooted in faith. When anxiety begins to stir in our minds, it often causes us to overthink, imagine worst case scenarios, and exhaust ourselves emotionally. But prayer interrupts that cycle. It's not just about repeating religious words, it's a spiritual shift in posture. Instead of carrying the weight of uncertainty alone, we bring our concerns to God, releasing what was never meant to be ours to bear. In doing so, we create space in our hearts for peace to enter. Prayer transforms our mindset for the mental chaos that worry during toilet to attract our possessed. What? When we pray, we realign our focus. Worry causes us to fixate on the problem, to enlarge it in our minds until it seems impossible to overcome. But prayer lifts our eyes off the issue and onto the one who is bigger than the issue. It reminds us that our lives are not out of control. They are in God's hands. Through prayer, we gain clarity, not necessarily because the situation changes immediately, but because we change. Our perspective becomes sharper. Our emotional state becomes steadier. Our inner strength is renewed as we choose to trust rather than tremble. Prayer also disciplines the heart. When we consistently bring our worries before God, we develop a habit of surrender. We stop clinging to every outcome and start trusting in divine timing. Each prayer becomes a building block of resilience, helping us grow spiritually stronger and emotionally calmer. Over time, we begin to recognize that peace isn't the absence of problems, but the presence of God in the midst of them. And this peace begins to guard our hearts from being overwhelmed. It becomes like armor, shielding us from the fiery darts of fear and doubt that worry constantly throws at us. Moreover, prayer brings us into deeper communion with God, which itself becomes a source of peace and strength. In moments of stillness, we are reminded of God's faithfulness, His promises, and His past provisions. These reflections ground us and restore our confidence. They help us see that we are not helpless, victims of life's uncertainties. We are deeply loved and heard by a God who moves on our behalf. When worry arises, choosing to pray not only calms our nerves, but also sharpens our focus, reminding us of what truly matters. Through prayer, we do more than silence anxiety. We grow into people of unwavering trust and unshakable faith. One of the greatest sources of worry is the size of the challenges we face. When problems grow in front of us, they often seem larger than life, more powerful than our strength, more complex than our solutions, and more threatening than we feel equipped to handle. Our minds naturally magnify what we fear. until it becomes the dominant force in our thoughts. But what if we shifted our perspective? What if, instead of focusing on how big the problem is, we reminded ourselves of how big our God is? Worry shrinks our faith, but faith shrinks our worries. God is not intimidated by our circumstances. He reigns over them. When we choose to trust God, we acknowledge that He is greater than anything we might face, greater than sickness, loss, financial struggle, broken relationships, or uncertainty about the future. The same God who parted the Red Sea, calmed the storm, raised the dead, and provided manna in the wilderness is the same God who walks with us today. He has not changed. His strength has not diminished. His promises have not expired. He invites us to shift the weight from our shoulders to His, not because our problems don't matter, but because we were never designed to carry them alone. Trusting Him is not weakness, it is wisdom. Faith reminds us that we are part of a bigger story, one that God is writing with purpose, even through the painful chapters. What may seem like chaos to us is never out of order to Him. He sees the end from the beginning. When we worry, we assume that everything depends on us, our decisions, our timing, our control. But trust allows us to rest in the knowledge that God is working, even when we don't see the evidence right away. He is the God who makes a way when there seems to be no way, who turns burdens into breakthroughs and pain into purpose. And He doesn't ask us to figure it all out, only to trust Him as He leads. Choosing to trust instead of worry. Began to replace anxious thoughts with God is with me. He is my peace. These truths become our anchor in the stone, as kil dia idaho blathe e. The battle between worry and trust is won not by might, but by surrender, surrendering the need to control, and embracing the certainty that God is bigger than anything that stands against. So today I encourage you, let go of the weight that worry places on your shoulders. Life may be unpredictable and challenges may come, but you don't have to face them in fear. You have a choice every single day to be consumed by anxiety or to walk forward in trust. Choose to rest in the truth that you are not alone, that your future is in God's hands, and that He is bigger than anything you will ever face. Trade your worry for worship, your fear for faith, and your panic for prayer. You'll find that peace was waiting for you all along on the other side of trust.